Hello everyone. In the landscape of ancient Greek thought, Epicurus' philosophy stands as one of the most misunderstood yet profoundly liberating approaches to human existence. Born in 341 BCE on the island of Samos, Epicurus developed a philosophical system that redefined freedom not as political power or unlimited choice, but as a state of tranquility achieved through rational management of desires and fears. His teachings, often caricatured as mere hedonism, actually present a sophisticated framework for attaining genuine autonomy in a world of uncertainty. The historical context of Epicurus' philosophy. To understand Epicurus' approach to freedom, we must first situate him in his historical moment. Epicurus lived during the tumultuous aftermath of Alexander the Great's empire, a period marked by political instability and social upheaval. Traditional city-state structures were collapsing, and citizens found themselves subject to the whims of distant rulers. In this environment of uncertainty, various philosophical schools emerged offering paths to happiness and self-sufficiency. The philosophy of Epicurus developed as a response to this crisis, proposing that true freedom could be found not through political engagement or accumulation of wealth, but through a carefully cultivated inner state. Epicurus established a school, known as the Garden, in Athens around 307 BC. Unlike other philosophical schools that engaged actively with politics, the Garden welcomed all, including women and slaves, a radical position for its time. This community embodied Epicurus' belief that freedom begins with breaking free from social conventions and prejudices. Core principles of Epicurean philosophy. Epicurean philosophy rests on a materialistic worldview derived from the atomism of Democritus. Epicurus believed that the universe consists entirely of atoms moving through void, with no divine intervention or afterlife. This materialistic foundation is crucial to his concept of freedom, as it removes the fear of divine punishment and focuses attention on this worldly happiness. The central aim of Epicurus' philosophy is ataraxia, a state of tranquility characterized by freedom from disturbance. This differs markedly from popular misconceptions of Epicureanism as advocating indulgence in sensual pleasures. As Epicurus himself stated, when we say that pleasure is the goal, we do not mean the pleasures of the profligate or those that consist in sensuality, but freedom from pain in the body and from disturbance in the soul. This distinction between types of pleasure forms the cornerstone of Epicurus' approach to freedom. He categorized pleasures into two types: kinetic pleasures, active, moving pleasures that involve the satisfaction of a desire; static pleasures, the state of tranquility that exists when all pain and disturbance are removed. For Epicurus, true freedom comes through prioritizing static pleasures, which provide lasting contentment rather than momentary gratification. Epicurus' classification of desires and freedom. Perhaps the most practical aspect of Epicurus' philosophy is his systematic classification of desires, which provides a framework for achieving freedom through rational management of wants and needs. Epicurus divided desires into three categories: natural and necessary desires, those required for basic survival and happiness, simple food, shelter, friendship; natural but unnecessary desires, those that provide pleasure but aren't required for happiness, luxury foods, fine clothing; vain and empty desires, those based on false beliefs about what we need, fame, power, excessive wealth. True freedom, according to Epicurus, comes from satisfying the first category, moderating the second, and eliminating the third. This approach liberates us from the endless pursuit of unnecessary desires that create anxiety rather than satisfaction. Nothing is enough for the man to whom enough is too little, Epicurus observed, highlighting how unlimited desires lead to perpetual dissatisfaction and, consequently, a lack of freedom. By contrast, learning to be content with enough, what Epicurus called the wealth of limited desires, creates genuine autonomy. This perspective challenges our modern consumer culture, which constantly generates new desires through advertising and social comparison. Epicurus would argue that such artificial wants actually diminish our freedom rather than enhance it. Freedom from fear, the tetrapharmakos. Central to Epicurus' conception of freedom is liberation from irrational fears. He identified fear, particularly fear of gods and death, as a primary source of human anxiety and unfreedom. To address these fears, he developed the tetrapharmakos, or four-part cure. Don't fear gods, they don't interfere in human affairs. Don't worry about death. When death is present, you are not. What is good is easy to obtain. Natural necessities are readily available. What is terrible is easy to endure, intense pain is brief, chronic pain is manageable. This practical formula aims to free the mind from its most common sources of disturbance. By rationally examining and dismissing irrational fears, Epicurus believed we could achieve genuine mental freedom. His approach to death is particularly noteworthy. Death is nothing to us, he wrote, since when we exist, death is not present, and when death is present, we do not exist. This logical analysis aims to free us from the anxiety that comes from fearing what we cannot experience. The role of pleasure in Epicurus' concept of freedom. Epicurus' pleasure theory is frequently misinterpreted. Unlike pure hedonism, Epicurus advocated a nuanced understanding of pleasure as the absence of pain, aponia, in the body and disturbance, ataraxia, in the mind. The magnitude of pleasure reaches its limit in the removal of all pain, he wrote. This means that once pain is removed, pleasure cannot increase further, only vary. This insight leads to a revolutionary understanding of freedom. We are free not when we can indulge every desire, but when we are no longer driven by pain, fear, or unnecessary wants. This perspective challenges both ancient and modern conceptions of freedom as the ability to do whatever one wants. For Epicurus, such unlimited choice without wisdom would lead to anxiety and dependence rather than liberation. True freedom comes from understanding what is truly necessary for happiness and focusing on those essentials. The philosophy of Epicurus thus presents pleasure not as indulgence, but as a carefully cultivated state of tranquility. This state represents the highest form of freedom, freedom from the tyranny of unlimited desires and irrational fears. Friendship and community in Epicurean freedom. Unlike some philosophical traditions that glorify self-sufficiency to the point of isolation, Epicurus recognized the essential role of friendship in achieving freedom and happiness. Of all the things which wisdom provides for the happiness of the whole life, by far the most important is the acquisition of friendship, he wrote. This emphasis on friendship reflects Epicurus' understanding that humans are social beings who cannot achieve true tranquility in isolation. The Epicurean garden was not merely a school, but a community of friends living according to shared principles. However, Epicurus' approach to social relations was selective rather than universal. He advocated withdrawal from conventional political life, which he saw as a source of anxiety rather than freedom. Instead, he recommended cultivating deep friendships with like-minded individuals who could support each other in philosophical living. This selective approach to social engagement represents a distinctive aspect of Epicurus' freedom concept. Rather than seeking freedom through political power or public recognition, Epicurus found it in the creation of alternative communities based on philosophical principles. Modern relevance, Epicurean freedom in contemporary life. The philosophy of Epicurus offers striking insights for our modern quest for freedom and happiness. In an age of consumerism, information overload, and social media comparison, his teachings on desire management and the nature of true pleasure seem increasingly relevant. Epicurus' classification of desires provides a practical framework for navigating consumer culture. By distinguishing between necessary and unnecessary desires, we can make more conscious choices about what we truly need versus what advertising and social pressure tell us we should want. His emphasis on simple pleasures challenges our culture's equation of happiness with acquisition and achievement. The wealth required by nature is limited and easy to procure, he wrote, but the wealth required by vain ideals extends to infinity. This insight offers liberation from the treadmill of working more to buy more, only to need more again. Epicurus' approach to fear, particularly fear of death, provides tools for addressing anxiety in our death-denying culture. By facing mortality rationally rather than suppressing awareness of it, we can live more authentically and freely. Perhaps most relevant is Epicurus' emphasis on friendship in an age of digital connection but increasing isolation. His garden community offers a model for creating meaningful social bonds based on shared values rather than convenience or utility. Contemporary movements like minimalism, digital detox, and intentional communities echo Epicurean principles, suggesting that his ancient wisdom continues to resonate with those seeking freedom from modern forms of bondage. Conclusion: the enduring wisdom of Epicurus on freedom. Epicurus' philosophy offers a sophisticated and nuanced approach to freedom that challenges both ancient and modern assumptions. By locating freedom in the management of desires rather than their unlimited fulfillment, he provides a path to autonomy that remains accessible regardless of external circumstances. The essence of Epicurean freedom lies in its practicality. Rather than abstract theorizing, Epicurus offered concrete guidance for living well. Limit desires to what is natural and necessary, cultivate friendships, avoid politics and fame, and overcome irrational fears through rational analysis. This approach to freedom doesn't require wealth, power, or special talents, only the willingness to examine one's beliefs and desires critically. As such, it represents a democratization of freedom, available to anyone willing to practice philosophical thinking. In our age of anxiety, information overload, and environmental crisis, Epicurus' vision of freedom through simplicity, friendship, and rational thinking offers a compelling alternative to both hedonistic consumerism and ascetic self-denial. His middle path reminds us that true freedom comes not from having everything we want, but from wanting what we truly need. The Garden of Epicurus, with its emphasis on philosophical friendship and simple living, may provide inspiration for those seeking to create islands of tranquility and autonomy in our troubled world. In this sense, the philosophy of Epicurus remains not merely of historical interest, but a living option for those seeking freedom in any age. Thanks for watching.